Okay, so this is Velazquez's portrait of a peasant girl, and yeah, I just did a colour study of this the other day. Oh, sorry, I mean it's not very good, but yeah, I'll just show that. So I've done a colour study, so I'm quite confident that I'll be able to show you exactly how to paint like Velazquez did in this painting, and I'm sure it's certainly going to be useful for me, and I'm sure it'll be useful for you. So I've blocked in the background. I've just used a bit of burnt umber and black. I'm going to use a very limited palette of probably literally just burnt umber black and then titanium white, vermilion and yellow ochre. And we'll see how we go. That's what I used in the colour study. So I just thought, I mean I was going to just block this in off camera, but I just thought I'd show this general process. So Velazquez, I'm pretty sure he painted it in a sitting and could well have been from life. I say that just because it took, to do the colour study, it's about an hour and a half or so, so I'm confident that we'll be able to get through this in a similar amount of time. We'll just see how it goes. So I'm just going to feel my way. At the moment it's just going to be burnt umber and black, just a little bit, just really filling in. I have marked it in chalk and then I've sealed that as well. So just like a sort of chalk crayon. And I'm just going to just fill in all of the darks. Not necessarily always how I would have worked, and that might not necessarily be how Velazquez himself would have worked, but it's just seeing as I've got it on the brush, it just gives me a chance to sort of feel my way through. So now I've got the burnt umber on the palette. I'm just going to put a bit of vermilion with it. I'm not going to show my palette today, but hopefully you should just be able to sort of make sense of it. What I found was I'll use hog's hair at the beginning, but once it gets to a certain level where there's paint all over the surface, then I think that's really where Velazquez came into his own, and it starts to sort of swim around. Oh, what's that? Swim around on the surface, and that's when you can really start to model it. But at the moment we're just concentrating on just getting as much paint as we can down. So this is just vermilion and burnt umber. There will be a bit of black in there because it's just still on the brush. And the drawing I'm going to adjust as I go. Trying to keep an eye just on the. I've got this white line that shows, where to go, just as a guide for now. So I don't want to lose track of that too quickly. But then it will change as I work into it. Because it looks very strange when you just see an outline of all the shapes, but I've just tried to sort of do my best to help me with an outline of the shadows, etc. It might not be exactly right, and quite often when you've got a transition but you've got to sort of mark it with a line, that can be a bit confusing sometimes, so we'll just be faithful to it now and then change it in a bit. Right, so there's a lot more vermilion. Maybe I'm going to use this brush. That's vermilion and black. That's too much, sorry, I'll just get another one. So there's pure vermilion now. And that's something in my colour study I could just see that it's definitely what he would have done. It's just I haven't done anything. There's no other colour in this. Remember, all we're trying to do is just get some paint down onto the surface. It certainly looks melancholic, or maybe just sort of a bit shy. I think in the one that I did, it's possibly just a bit too melancholic. But again, I'm just really trying to sort of stick to what I believe is would have been Velazquez's process. So not to spend too long working on it, but for the I might for the colour study do another pass. So therefore I can just adjust those bits of drawing. So it's still just going on. Just going to get it on. It's just got an extremely red area of cheek. And as a sabre will be able to sort of get rid of the any unsightly brush marks. Okay, so let's just get straight in a bit of yellow ochre. Quite a lot of it. So I'm just mixing up it's just yellow ochre and vermilion. Just see. So I'm just going to go around now and just put areas wherever I can see, and they can all be adjusted. I sort of when I started, I just used some acrylic, burnt umber acrylic, just because that's what was fascinating about the portrait. Just here, where he's literally used the imprimatura for the colour of her dress. And that's just so beautifully efficient. So I can just model it very loosely. Important thing just to get the paint on. Suddenly, and I've always been fascinated, I know it's maybe a strange thing, but just this area around her eye, just where it's just a flick of his brush, and that is just really wonderful, very, very typical of Velazquez. It's just, very beautiful, very flamboyant. So I had a go doing that. I can't say I did it anything like Velazquez, but it was fun. I'll try again. And that's when I realised, he might have actually done it. He probably did do it in one go, but you can do it. When there's lots and lots of paint there, we'll get the sable on it, and then we can just go over it and over it a few times until we've got the drawing right. So this is actually right out here. So I've got this on my brush. There's just vermilion and black now, just a little bit. That would be quite good for this sort of shadow area. That's what I mean about the transitions, that I've just loosely drawn it. But we'll go over it again. And obviously, I mean, there's a lot of vermilion in this, but I'll just work into it because it's quite dark. This is absolutely how he would have painted it, just constantly adjusting as he went. So yeah, I think it's just being careful not to, so she's not too down in the mouth. We're going to build up to the lights, but it won't be long. So probably try and just use a brush for each colour, so back to pure vermilion. I mean, it's not really pure vermilion, but it's just a start. There's a lot of it though. None of this will make much sense until I add the highlights, and then you'll see. I can just maybe put a bit into this shadow. That's what I mean by, so then we'll just start to add one colour to another, and then the whole painting becomes a palette. I think it's probably quite useful to just start adding a little bit of the lighter highlights. So I'm going to use a lot of white, making sure I've got some medium. So I've just got pure white on, a fair amount of yellow ochre, and some more vermilion. This is going to be, it's not, so we'll just check it, that's quite a lot. So just gently. I do have some Velazquez medium, I'm loath to try it. Velazquez medium meaning it's oil and calcite that I bought. I think I'll try it on another one. I want to, you know, I bought it but I haven't actually used it, and I don't want to just use it for the first time on camera. So who knows what's going to happen. But the calcite that was used to just sort of, it thins out the paint, and so just adding translucency. So yeah, it's not exactly how he would have possibly done this area, because he's going to go in very rapidly. That's okay, it's just going to give us a feel. So there is quite a lot of colour in this, you know, if you put it next to some white, something white. That's my Velazquez medium, but you can see white. It's not a very good example, sorry. No, I'll just do her shawl and you'll see what I mean. It's all going to need blending. Don't put too much on there. I mean, the imprimatur is going to work quite well. It's slightly painterly, it does have brush marks, but it's, let's still do it. That's very, very white there, so I'll leave that. Shadow. I do need a slightly smaller brush. So I won't leave so much paint on. So we'll work wet in wet and just sort of add much more, a lot more. It's going to need a lot more white around there and a smaller brush. Just a bit of shadow here, it's kind of the same as the imprimatura, but I'll put some paint on. A bit darker maybe. Slightly softer in the transition. Pure Vermilion. Okay, right, so here are my brushes. Slightly smaller, but so I've got, yeah, I'm just making a light, it's not pure white, so I'm just mixing into, you know, this other highlight. I'll just slowly build up to that. Just looking for the lightest spots. It's just a process of adjustment. So yeah, I'm going to. The brushes are shrinking a bit. So if I get a sable, I'll start to show what I mean. Well, now we're starting to get a lot of paint on the surface. Sorry about that. No, it shouldn't be pure white. So sable. Everything's just a bit less scratchy. Just fuck off. Okay, so I haven't got so much paint on my brush now, and I'm just going to start just going around. It's a bit more white. It's a synthetic brush, but it's pretty good. It's like a sable, really. So tiny bit of medium and some quite, I mean that's pure white going on. But it's mixing up with what's already there. I'll just go around and again, so I'm working into what I've already painted, and I'm just starting to adjust a little bit. You can't copy the just the handling of Velazquez. I've mentioned before that it's just there are an infinite number of variables that create this. Every person's handling, every person's handling is just unique to them. So just around here where he's got this very sort of loose, wobbly sort of line using a sable brush. It's only Velazquez could have done that, and it's not necessarily to do with sort of his technical. Obviously, he's technically he's a supremely technical painter, but it's just that's his sort of fingerprint, isn't it? In the same way that our heartbeat is our fingerprint, or the sound of our voice is our fingerprint. It's unique to us, and just the way he sort of moved paint around, and the way he just had this wobbly line. You see it all over in all of his work. It's the quality of the calcite, I suppose, as well. But so it's funny. It's always going to look like a picture that we paint. But I just feel more confident now that I'm going to be able to sort of use this method in my own work. And you can see, so I'm sort of doing it quite quickly. But with a few hours, and you can get there. few hours. The point is it's wet in wet. So he's working in a sitting, I'm sure. I'm much more comfortable using this kind of hog's hair. It is scratchy, but I have to just go with it. Still got my sable there. It's actually that kind of colour. So I've laid, the vermilion's there, but now I'm going to go back into it with a lighter colour. That's just going to be too much. And yeah, what I'm really fascinated is just this such sort of loose handling around just to describe her eyes. That's really fantastic. It's so amazing. And it's going to, of course, it's different doing a copy because I'm working from life. It's his own interpretation. I'm trying to adhere exactly to how he drew it, but I'm sure, he probably would have drawn her slightly differently on another day. Okay, I'm going to do the whiteness of her shawl, the scarf now. Well, what the hey, let's just try a bit of this so-called Velazquez medium with a bit of calcite. That does. Ooh, that's very thick. Okay, so he used that so he could go, yeah, look, it's got this translucent quality, and he can let the imprimatura show through. Make sure I've still got a bit of medium, otherwise it'll never dry. Again, I've got my guideline, just it's only rough though here. We'll work into it. Something around there, but it's not. That's more Vermilion. It'll be resist the temptation to do that. It's going to be too much. You see the calcite? Yeah, it's very translucent. It's nice, actually. Without it, when the white goes over the top of the imprimatura, it just looks very, very chalky. I mean, it still does a bit, but yeah. Today I'm just going to give a rough, it's just a rough outline. It just shows you the sort of general principle of it. And then, you can take longer, take as long as you want. So he's working like this. This is it. Just very, very, very loosely. Just really enjoying handling the paint. And a similar sort of time scale, I'm sure. That's what I mean by this sort of wobbly line coming down here. He's just done it in one go. Just if you actually did it, anyway, it doesn't matter, he did it after he'd gone over it a bit. But yeah, it's just this kind of area. I don't know if you could just sort of do it with a finger, the calcite. So very, the imprimatura has to show through to create the shadow. I chose this painting as a single portrait, and it's just very, very characteristic of that way of working that I'm fascinated by, and that I just want to in some way try and emulate. So that's why I've chosen this painting. Shouldn't have any more than that. a sort of kink there. Try and get wobbly, not too wobbly, because I'm not wobbly. Not so much. I give the impression that I always work like this, but you know, I can be a lot tighter, you know, a lot more disciplined and tighter and finished. This is all just for the purposes of the demonstration. I mean, I'm capable of carving a portrait in marble, and the sort of discipline that requires, that's, you know, a completely different process. Yeah, she's really sort of leaning back. I don't know if I've got that enough. Just ever so faintly. So I'm just, yeah, try to just leave a little bit of the imprimatur, just. Right. Excuse me. I'm just going to use it, just a brush, sorry, a piece of cloth. That feels, yeah. Well, I didn't know that, but yeah, maybe that sort of is quite similar in look, in appearance. This is around here, sorry. It doesn't actually matter. I'm just going into the brown a bit. You get the general idea though. Yeah, it doesn't seem, you know, so unfathomable as it did. Just doing a copy is so enlightening. Just a tiny bit. So that's sort of, well, that's my small discovery today. Is just, I think, you know, you can use a cloth just to take off some of that, some of the white. Now, how he sort of achieved these, yeah, just brilliant brush strokes. Yeah, you can see, you know, underneath, you know, very impasto brushwork, just creating these highlights there, and then you know, behind that, whether he used a cloth or not, I don't know, but you know, it's just the calcite, you know, that medium is actually pretty handy. So I can just go over this, just adding, I'm going to get some pure white. Okay, so yeah, I feel that's pretty close to it, and I can just show while we're here. You know how he did it with a sable brush actually. That's definitely the case. Oh, so this is my mix of burnt umber and a little bit of black. And he just doesn't really matter too much. Can't see my reference. That's what he did. Okay, well that's the body, and now the tricky bit is just going back over the head. And it's still, obviously it's still quite crude there, but you know, that's alright for now. So I don't feel happy about these highlights, they're still not light enough. This is always the case. I feel like possibly my my other version that I just did when no one was watching was better. But I'm sure I can get as close to it again. It's just really wonderful to be able to. I'm chuffed that I've come close to finding out his process. A few years ago, I had no way I could have done this, but yeah, I've just yeah, feel like I've turned a corner. Very soon I'll have to post something of my own, so you can see how I'm going to use this knowledge to create my own portraits. Right, because it's already dark, I can get some pure vermilion. Just go in here, and I can see the line that I painted of the transition. I think I could be a bit more faithful to that now. Let's really try to just see what my intention was. That's not very good. Right, some very, very, very subtle transitions going on in here. So I've got the dark, and I can just, I'm just going into it. It's just a process of working, that's all, just work. Just not sure if the drawing's right here. Sort of just folds around her cheek. She leans into it a little bit. And then somewhere here, there's just a reference. So you've got her cheekbone and just travels around. So I've just used some of this lighter mix of vermilion and yellow ochre, and it's just got that little, just a flick of paint. So I don't want her to just be too, she's not as chubby as I've got her there in her cheek. It's no darker than that in her mouth, really, I don't think. Just put a little bit in. So now I'm sort of halfway with my vermilion and just a little bit of black. And there's still imprimatura showing through in various places. It's too light, but I'll just mix it in a sec. Coming down a bit more there. So just got these areas, it's just broken up. It's actually sort of more like that, really. It's just the imprimatura. Oh. So, pure vermilion. All pure vermilion. Still just applying it very quickly, but we can smooth it out. Oh goodness me. Just got this, it's a dry brush, dry sable. Not so dry now. Wiping it, just wipe the paint off just a bit. I mean, that's a really interesting bit for me. Just it's where you can just see his handling and how he's done that. This area needs a lot more yellow ochre, I think. I'm not even sure if he used a dry. I think he must have used a dry brush, to be honest. I think he would have let it get to a similar sort of state with the quantity of paint on the surface, so that he was still able. It's like half dry brushing, really. You're just because lots of paint gets onto the the fibres of the brush, and yeah, and then they just all mix in. So again, it's still like a palette, but it's just smoother transitions. That's just something I'm not happy with in the eyes. They're just too dark. So maybe I'll just go back into them. So I've got this is Vermilion and black. They were never this dark. I feel like I've just lost the drawing there. Yeah, so it's not a dry brush anymore. Dry-ish. This is very, very white. I mean, it's almost pure white going on, but it is mixing with the colours there. So now with the dry brush, I'm going to be very careful, and you can definitely get close to it. It's just now it's just all about the sort of how much time. And as I said, it might not necessarily be how I'd apply the paint, but it's more just to know that you can use this combination of colours and create these effects. I think it's quite sort of, you know, tenebristic, Caravaggio-esque, but I don't know, it doesn't have to be gloomy. I don't find it a gloomy painting at all. It does have a very dark background.